be the change you wanna see.
Seaside is a caring, connected, and expanding spiritual community, sharing practical tools for richer living.
Just your heart to show you how you can be the change if you wanna.
We join in partnership with God to influence our lives for good, whether for improved health, finances, relationships, or simple happiness and joy.
Plant a flower, watch it grow. You will reap what you sow. You gotta be the change.
I had to yell because it takes some time to walk to the mic. Good morning, everybody. It's so wonderful and so great to see your beautiful, vibrant faces this morning. I am so excited because today is an exciting, amazing program that we have put together for you. And Reverend Christian is definitely going to inspire you this morning like he always does. So I noticed that each one of you got a little gift this morning when you walked in. Let me see your gifts. Did you get a gift? You did? You got your pens? Did you get your surfboards? Surfboards, yep. So we got surfboards this morning, and not only are they keychains, see, to put on your keys, they are also bottle openers so that we can release other kinds of spirits. So Seaside is a thriving community where we always have events, where there's always something happening. So I suggest that you check your programs where we have all of the information available there for you. We also have it available on our website, and you can go on there and you can check the Inside Seaside and you can open it up there. And there are so many reasons why I love Seaside, but I will just go ahead and show you what that is. Go ahead, Marv.
One of the reasons I love Seaside is I found him at Seaside.
I love my Seaside, and we're listening to one of the reasons why right now with that band.
I love my Seaside.
Why do I love Seaside? What's there not to love?
Love my Seaside.
Why wouldn't you love Seaside? All the people, the community, the prayers, the love.
Oh, I love it because it's so much fun and it's so spiritual, and I make lots of new friends.
The spiritual conversations, it's all like what wouldn't you love about Seaside?
Friendship, people, everything.
Love my Seaside.
Come on down to 1613 Lake Drive in Encinitas, California.
And apparently, if you are here, you know that we're on 1613 Lake Drive. But if you're watching online, that is where we are located. And thank you for being here. And I'm just going to step on down so that we can let Danielle do her thing.
Morning, Seaside. How we doing today? Got a little something special here for you. It's a big day at Seaside. Something special to get us energized. I am unwritten, can't read my mind. I'm undefined. I'm just beginning, the pen's in my hand, ending unplanned, staring at the blank page before you. Open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you cannot find, reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions, feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Drench yourself in words unspoken, live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins, feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Drench yourself in words unspoken, live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins, the rest is still unwritten. Yeah, the rest is still unwritten. Oh yeah, the rest is still unwritten. The rest is still unwritten. Yeah. Thanks, you guys.
Is Danielle Tucker. Bless you. Oh, it's still unwritten. There is so much more good ready to download. And good morning, Seaside. Woo! What a joy it is to be with you on this exciting day. It is a significant day in the calendar year of Seaside. We have been engaged here at Seaside in this wonderful journey, the treasures of the sea. And there is a richness in the bounty of the infinite that is waiting our discovery. And we have paddled out to greet it. We have dove down deep to find it, and it is about bringing it forth and sharing it with the world. And so today is the one day of the year where we come together and say, hey guys, what is your intention of support for Seaside in 2019? And so this morning I'm giving you a heads up, we're building to that. We have got a lot of good going on, showing you all the spectacular things that are happening at Seaside. You know, Danielle Tucker, just fabulous. You know, she was singing at the Belly Up this week, and here she is at Seaside this morning. You are fabulous. You got wonderful guest artists and ministers and practitioners. It's really fun. And so what I want to do is just pray, and I invite you to join with me as we evoke our awareness of that greater expression of life, that life force, that beauty that created Seaside, that created the idea of Seaside, that it breathed the life into all of us that are Seaside, for there is a power and a presence that is moving in this moment, this blessed moment, this God moment, this now moment where the allness is ever available, this sea of infinite treasure waiting to be discovered, and it is discovered here today in each of our individual fields of awareness, that greater good that is personalizing its touch with a nudge, with a message, with the music, with a divine pulse that just says, wow, God is, I am, how wonderful to be. So knowing that divine isness of Spirit expresses through this service this morning, we go forth with that rising tide of greater good, knowing that what's in store for us has been God ordained. So we go forth receptive to the beauty of Spirit, and so it is. Amen. Wow. Hey, today is an amazing day. It's Veterans Day. It actually is. It's the 11th. You know, we got 11/11. There's a power in those 11s. You know, something inside me stirs for sure. And a lot of it is those individuals that have been willing to step out there in the world and say, you know what, there's a high ideal that our country stands for. You know, we're doing our best to represent it. But these individuals have been willing to say, you know, I'm willing to give it all, including my life, to help this nation be able to be free, to express, to create, to experience the abundance, the love, the sharing, and the kindness. And we've got a wonderful veteran here at Seaside who last year shared his poem and his amazing story that had us all in tears. And I asked, you know, you have a fresh poem for us? Actually, he shared it with me. I said, you know what, Daniel, you got to share that with Seaside on this Veterans Day. So please join me in welcoming to the microphone Daniel Paikopoulos.
It is a privilege and an honor to be here, wishing you a peaceful Veterans Day. I am a United States Marine Corps Purple Heart veteran of Vietnam, and I'm also a poet. Yeah, hoorah. I write every day, and I have to tell you that I am inspired constantly by the messages of Reverend Christian Sorensen. Of course, on Sundays, I'm an old guy, and I never leave here without hearing something different and new, and I'm always amazed by that. And then there's his daily emails and his podcasts, and he often inspires what I'm going to write. And this poem that I'm going to read to you, a little darker than the one I read last year, but it doesn't have to be, and it was inspired by something he said a while back. When I came here, I was in pain, and all of it was invisible. I had PTSD. I later learned I had cancer. I learned that my back didn't work anymore, and then my legs didn't work. And you know what? I came here, I was welcomed, loved, supported, and nourished. Well, I was getting there where I could change my thinking and change my life. None of those things are true anymore. And I'm just overjoyed, and I rejoice every time I come here on a Sunday. So the poem I'm going to read to you today is about invisible wounds. It's about our heroes and our veterans who are damaged but invisibly, and you don't see them. So the poem might sound sad. It might sound like you should be upset hearing it, but I'm asking you not to be. I'm asking you to be inspired by it. I'm asking you to take it as a challenge, a call to action, to look when you meet a veteran and say, does that person need my support? The kind of love and welcome support that I got when I got here. The name of the poem is Dr. Seuss Does Panic Attacks. It's not intended to be that funny, but it turned out that way. And it's mainly because I don't usually write in rhyme, but I did on this one, and Dr. Seuss, of course, is always rhyme. So here you go. From the halls of Montezuma to a hedge-lined nursery, I'd no idea what was happening to me. It was a beautiful day, early in May, children at play, free to be free. There were flags unfurled to a mid-spring breeze, no reasons to fret, and all was at ease. No nerves at work, I was just buying flowers. Such a sunny scene, no fear of showers. Suddenly it hit me, bright lights, roaring sound. The flowers went flying, me too, to the ground. With chest beating wildly, gasping for air, no idea what to do, I just had to leave there. Eventually I calmed, tried looking back, realized this wasn't the first such attack. With thoughts of death, pure fight or flight, with no clue as to cause, try as I might. Later, in treatment, I learned what it was. It became all too obvious, the reasons, the cause. The children that day were all Vietnamese, no danger to me nor their families. But that has little to do with the truth, don't you see? There's no logic to emotions in PTSD. I'm better now, but I'll never be free. It's a life sentence, this thing, this PTSD. I have coping skills now to assist and people who know, and little by little it improves as I grow. A little bit older, a lot more wise, so now when the attacks start, I just close my eyes. Notice my breathing, count the beats of my heart. It's not a total solution, but hey, it's a start. Thank you for listening.
Aston. Daniel, powerful. Wow. He represents all our veterans that are here at Seaside, and I'll tell you what, on this Veterans Day, anyone who has served our country in the service, the military in some capacity, would you stand so we could just love you up too and say thank you. I'm just moved to do a prayer in this moment. I just feel the love that is in this room, this appreciation for something that we know not of, but a profound essence that these individuals were willing to sacrifice it all, including their life. They went forth innocent and came back changed. And I know that these individuals walk through our country today just feeling the gifts that came from those who are willing to give it all. So knowing that our country is blessed and growing, evolving, maturing, and birthing itself into a greater expression because of these bold individuals who are willing to take a stance for a greater expression of God. For one nation, under God, united we stand. So it is. Amen.
Good morning, Seaside. My name is Reverend Kim Jarrett Whittington, and woohoo, right? Woohoo! And I'm going to invite us to stand, and we're going to do a beautiful responsive reading. It's going to be me speaking the first part, and then you guys speaking the second part. Are you with me on that? Are you willing to stand and do that with me? Great. No longer thinking about my dream, but from them, I deliver my gift without forcing prayer into form. Remembering the divine order of those who sow sparingly reap sparingly, and those who sow bountifully reap bountifully. I no longer settle for the ways it has always been. I remain in perfect peace as I move forward because my mind is stayed on spirit. You can give without loving, but you can't love without giving. In giving, you raise the love expression of this planet. The rising tide lifts all boat in harbor. Beyond awareness, I act in complete alignment with the highest good to discover God's good is my good. And together, I am blessed by the infinite showing up as my life in the right ways now. And so it is. Thank you. You guys can actually remain standing. We're going to do our congregational song next. So I'm going to invite Danielle back up.
Yes, thank you. Let's all stay standing. We're going to sing God is My Source this morning. Come on up, Jamie. All right, you ready, Seaside? Here we go. God is my source. God is my power. God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. God gives me everything I need. Joy. Joy is my source. Joy is my power. Joy gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. Joy gives me everything I need. Love is my source. Love is my power. Love gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. Love gives me everything I need. Peace is my source. Peace is my power. Peace gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. Peace gives me everything I need. One more. God is my source. God is my power. God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. God gives me everything I need.
Good morning, family. Hi. All right, we got this. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Audra Nicole. I am a spiritual
practitioner here at Seaside. It is my joy to serve in that capacity. I'm also on staff here supporting you in operations and finance. And today I want to talk about one of my favorite things, about our philosophy, our community, and the good work of our practitioners. Our movement was founded on healing, not just because the words were powerful and pretty and they sounded nice, but because they actually work, because prayer works. I joined our movement, I discovered CSL in the hardest year of my life. I didn't even know that I needed this community, but Spirit did. And because of prayer and support, I got to grow through it. I got to see the gifts of everything that I went through, and I got to become so much more. A couple ways that as a community and as a collective that we serve each other is prayer. We receive prayer requests throughout the week in a variety of ways. So if there's anything on your heart that you would love prayer for, we have prayer request boxes, one in the back of the room by the dolphin, and we also have one in the west hallway right through these doors. You can also send us a prayer request on our website. Now don't be fooled. If your life is going really good, that doesn't mean you shouldn't use prayer. It's not just for the bad, yucky, ugly, this isn't fun stuff. It's for the really, really good stuff, because you can also pray for more and more and more of this good. In connection with prayer and healing, one of our powerful ministries is something that we call compassionate care. Sometimes the body isn't really cooperating. Sometimes the pain is too much to bear, to see our own light, to know our own wholeness. And please just know that that's okay. It happens to all of us, even myself. If I'm in pain, if I can't see the light, what I do know is that I have a community that I can call on. I can send a text. I can offer a prayer request. And if it's something really big, maybe something that even stops you from being able to make it here on Sunday, we're still here for you. In our congregant care, we go out into the community. We visit people at hospitals or different homes, whatever the need is. We don't just stop at these walls. We're here for you in big ways. And every Sunday, any wonderful, beloved soul here wearing one of these stoles has been through years and years of training in consciousness, in healing, in the power of our word. And they are here to serve you, to be available for prayer, to know your highest and best. And they make it easy and they make it fun. So just ask. Another thing that practitioners do is something we call holding the light. What the heck does that mean, right? It's holding the consciousness. It's holding the high watch. It's using all of their being to know the good of the community, the good of this service, the good of the world. It's something that we take very seriously here at Seaside. And on every Sunday, we have a practitioner holding the light. So today, I would like to light that candle together. Let's begin to hold the light. And at this time, I'd like to welcome out our beloved Ray Holder, a practitioner who's been with us. In the spirit of holding the light and holding the consciousness, Ray and his beloved wife, Carolyn, were integral parts of making this home possible. They've been a part of our family for over 20 years. And it was some of their light and their consciousness that helped make this possible. So thank you for that, Ray.
It's been a blessing.
So as we light this candle, we know the highest and the best for ourselves, for our beloveds, for our community, and for the greater good. Thank you, Ray. while I know the power of prayer in my own personal life, at this time I would really love to invite my beloved friend, James, up to the stage to share with us a story of how recently prayer really proved powerful in his world. My favorite pilot, everyone.
Good morning. I'm one of those people that are great at supporting others and not so great at allowing others to support me. I just don't ask for it. I come here to this loving, wonderful place that Seaside is. Hear Reverend Christian every week urge and invite us to send our prayer request in, and don't do it. You know, prayer requests, that's for other people. I've got this under control. You know, a lot of you know I'm a corporate pilot. And at my job, all of the cabin attendants and a bunch of the pilots have been furloughed. And for the program I was hired for. So I'm sitting at home, not flying, don't know what's going on. Nobody's communicating. And I'm telling myself I have this under control, except I don't. I woke up Halloween morning, and I did not have it under control. I woke up so sad that my heart ached, so sad that it hurt to breathe. And then I heard a voice that sounded amazingly like mine say, "Send a prayer request to Seaside." And I did. I told them what was going on with me, and I asked them to hold me in a joyous, loving light because I was having trouble getting back there, back to joy. Now, that was about 5:30 in the morning. Around 11 o'clock, what I call the Seaside love assault began. I started receiving messages from Seaside that were so full of love and support that my mind actually grew quiet. It was a major offensive that overwhelmed any feeling of not being worthy, of being loved and supported. And I had the thought, gosh, I am part of this family. And I felt a lot better. So I decided to stop laying low and avoid attracting attention to myself and start doing and start trusting what Spirit had been telling me for 3 weeks. Call your boss and find out what's happening. So I started composing a text, actually, and like we often do sometimes, I inadvertently dialed him, realized I did, and hung up in like a nanosecond. And he called me back almost immediately, which is amazing, because this guy is very busy. And he could not have been nicer. He explained to me what's going on with the company, told me he would look into why I was not flying. And then he said something I have never heard before in all the flying I'm doing. He said, "Hey, now, if I start flying you too much, don't be afraid to cry uncle." And within about 10 minutes, he texted me and said, "You're going out on Friday. I'm going out flying on Friday." So, Seaside, our family, this is a place where people remember who we are even when we do not. And that's what a prayer request is for me. It's asking our family to remember who we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful story. I was one of those ones that was like Facebooking, emailing, calling him. And that's what we do here in the community, right? We get those messages. They hit ours as the practitioners and the ministers. They hit our inbox. And instantly we start the process. So thank you for that. And I'm just so grateful that everything worked out. And I love you to pieces. With that, I wanted to take us into just a conversation. This is Pledge Sunday. So if this is your first time here, you're coming at a little bit of a different order of service than we typically do. But what's beautiful about Pledge Sunday is you get to really understand what the giving process and the tithing process and the consciousness around that is. One of the things that I'm not sure if you are all aware of, but Seaside actually practices what we talk about. We tithe as a community 10%, which is what a tithe is, back out into the world, into the local community. We support other ministers as they grow in their spiritual growth. We support people's works, which is, in alignment with what we believe. We tithe. And what I wanted to share with you is that the total tithe since the beginning of Seaside has amounted to $1.215 million. Yeah, we can clap to that. It's a big deal. And I love that number. I remember doing this last year, and I love when it grows every year because it really shows how an abundant consciousness, an abundant community, a community that understands the law of circulation, what the magnificence that can create in the world. If you know spirit, you know that there is nothing that is too big or too small in the eyes of the universe. It's just not possible. The universe only knows what we put out into it, and that is how we can create the life that we want. It doesn't have any idea of whether you're asking for $5 or $50 million. If you really have the intention, it's going to show up. That's the beauty of it. One of the ways that you can support this beautiful, beloved community is that you can support us through what's called the auto tithe. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen these around, but a lot of people during the giving portion will put this in the basket. The auto tithe is just an automatic, systematic giving. So it allows this beautiful, beloved community to exist, to pay for the building and the ministers and the staff, etc. And it does it in a consistent way because we know that life gets in the way, right? We go through life, and then all of a sudden Sunday shows up, and we're like, okay, I'm not going to make it today. And so it allows for that automatic giving to be showing up for us. In addition, you can do an ACH withdrawal with that. So it's just something for you to know. You can put it on a credit card or an ATM card, etc. And so it just automatically comes out every week, but you don't have to be here to actually do it. I know for me, a lot of times I show up on Sundays and I look in my wallet. I hate to admit this, but I'll look in there and I'm like, gosh, dang it. I used my last check for my daughter's cheerleading last week. Yeah, because it happens, because cheerleading, is quite expensive and they're always asking for money. And, God bless them. I love it. But I'm sure that we all have those situations, right? So when that does happen, the ACH, the auto tithe, are a great way to not have to think about it. And I kind of transition to that, so it just makes it super easy. In addition to that, I wanted to move into right now the opportunity. Oh, you know what else we have? This just came about. We also have a text to give, and that's just new and it's starting. So just keep an eye out for that. I think there was something in that was sent home with that. It's just a phone number, or just like you would do a text, you'd put this number in, and then it'll pop up with a message and say, how much do you want to give? And then you can give whatever you want. So that's kind of another cool feature that we have coming up. But with that, I'd like to invite our ushers forward. We're doing this again a little bit different than our normal order of service, but we're going to move into the actual giving. If you have the pledge card, because I know this is Pledge Sunday, hold on to those. This isn't the time really for that just yet. Ushers, you can go ahead and come forward. But the pledge card, hold on to that, because they'll ask for that with the board a little bit later in service. This is just our normal giving process. And again, your love, your light, your energy, your vibration goes out into the community and really supports all the works that are happening here and beyond these walls. And so to all the beautiful beloveds down here, I'm so grateful for you and for your service. Thank you. And if Marv can put on the screen the affirmation for today, if you guys would be willing to repeat with me the affirmation. Spirit continues to bless my world. Gratefully I live as the giving expression of spirit, opening the floodgates of the affluent flow of greater good as my life now. Thank you. And so, as we take in the energy of this bountiful, beautiful representation of the hearts, the minds, the souls of the beloveds in this community, I know that this goes on to serve greater humanity. It goes on to serve the local community, the individuals in Seaside. I know that the love and the energy and the vibration of abundance is flowing as we dive into the law of circulation because it is good. And so I just allow this to go on, to do its work, to be God in action. I release these words knowing it is love. And so it is. And this is one of your board members, Tina. Thank you. And now Danielle's going to come up.
Thank you very much. All right, Seaside. Do we not get the greatest musical guest artist here every Sunday? Today is absolutely no different. This fine gentleman is here, and I knew it was going to be a powerful morning because we were already on the same color palette, and that's something else. He is a singer, songwriter. I'm sure you all know and love him. You can meet him after the service. Please, everybody, welcome Jamie Lula.
Good morning, y'all. I love this community. I love my much younger and better looking and more hair brother Christian. You are catching up. I'll teach you how to shave it. I appreciate the generosity of this community, and it's all the years that I've been coming here. The time I went to the other place over that was down on the other side of the freeway once, and then I was very early on when you had just moved in here. I came here, and I just love what this community does, what it represents. This is a Floyd Lula song, brand new. Walk a mile or a minute in another man's shoes. He's got a path to take to find his truth. Any way you spin it, he's a lot like you. Finding his faith on roads that you'd never choose. Keep on a-walking. Keep on a-walking. Don't let it blind your vision. Let love be your only mission always. Let go of all conditions. Let love be your only mission always. Keep on a-walking. Keep on a-walking. Tell a tale, you're in it. Hear a brother man's blues. He's got a destination and no excuse. Why do you condemn it when it's not your own? You can't unsee it once the light has shone. Keep on a-walking. Keep on a-walking. Don't let it blind your vision. Let love be only vision always. Let go the old conditions. Love be your only mission always. Don't let it blind your vision. Let love be your only mission always. Let go the old condition. Let that be your only mission always. Keep on a-walking. Keep on a-walking. One foot in front front of the other, hand in hand, one with another. Walk with your sister and brother always. One foot in front of the other, hand in hand, one with another. Walk with your sister and brother always. If your only vision, let love be your only mission always. Let go of old conditions, let love be your only mission always. Oh, don't let it blind your vision, let love be your only mission always. Let go of the old conditions, let love be your only mission always. One more time, don't let it blind your vision, let love be your only mission always. Let go of the old conditions, let love be your only mission always. Keep on walking, y'all, come on. Keep on walking, side by side with your brothers, and keep on walking. Keep on walking by the seaside with your family. Keep on walking, sing it with me. Keep on walking, one more time. Keep on walking. Keep on walking.
Hey, Jamie's got a good one there. That is a hot one. Boy, the Lynn Floyd combo is a winner, that's for sure. Great job, Jamie. That is a perfect song for this morning. Walking side by side, hand in hand. Love's our only mission. This is good. This is good stuff. It's what Seaside is about. You know, it is. We are family. We are in this together. It is about home. It is about coming together and being here for one another. And together we have created this amazing spiritual community. And together it has moved through decades of time because individuals have chosen to hold hand in hand and to walk together in that love and making that love our mission no matter what comes up, because things do come up. And together we're stronger. You know, I was watching a whaling movie this week because ocean, you know, it was Heart of the Sea. And, you know, I watched the ropes that they held these ships down, and these ropes are made up of just little teeny vines. And they put all these little twine or whatever these small pieces of rope are, they put them together. You know, one you could break, but together they're strong enough to hold a ship in. That's what this community is about. You know, sometimes we're feeling weak, like we can be broken, but together there is such power in the sense of community. And then I watched on this movie how they actually get the anchor up. I've wondered, how did they get the big anchor up before motors? And they've got a wheel, and they get a bunch of guys that walk around this wheel, and it pulls the anchor up. Not one person could have lifted that anchor on their own, but 4 or half a dozen guys can carry this big weight from the bottom of the ocean. Together, we are able to move through challenging times of shootings, of elections, of fires. We come together and we talk about that sometimes. And it is just together that we are stronger for sure, because we're remembering Spirit. Yeah, that's right. You know, there's a story that Jesus, a master teacher, said, or he didn't say, I came here to make life tough on you, for you to be frustrated, bound, and limited. The story goes that he said, I came to fulfill the prophecy. I have come that you might have life more. There you go. There's some of you that remember it from your Bible days. You know, I have come that you might have life more abundantly, not to struggle, not to have difficulty. And so then we have these challenges in our life. And I'd like to say, you know, we don't get challenges, but there's an interesting thing about that, is that resistance in the air is what allows the birds to fly. James, he flies his planes into the wind, which lifts it up. Fish swim with resistance in the water. We swim because of resistance in the water. We're able to paddle out because there's resistance. We pull ourselves forward. We walk on Mother Earth because there's resistance. We're able to push ourselves off. And so what I want us to get is that sometimes that resistance isn't really a bad thing. And Ernest Holmes, the founder of this whole shebang, he said that we often should affirm every day that there has been no mistake, that there is no mistake now, and there can be no mistake. It's like, man, that's pretty broad. We're talking about some challenges going on here. But in the realization, if you understand the fuller picture, you come to recognize oftentimes that the challenge, the resistance, and the difficulty is what takes to stretch you. It has you stretch into a greater place. There was a young guy who's taking his girlfriend up into the mountains, and what for? I don't know. But, and she looked at the path they were hiking up, and she said, there's nothing but rocks and boulders in the path. And he said, that's it. That's the path, are the rocks and the boulders. And sometimes in our life, we forget that the rocks and the boulders are the opportunity for us to climb ever higher. And the perfection of our journey sometimes isn't known until the end of the journey. We don't get how, serving and being hurt or something can be a blessing in our life. We don't understand how the challenge in our world may be a blessing, but it's that kind of resistance that allows us to dig down a little deeper. And when we continue to remember to put Spirit first in our life, as Moses said to his people, I shared it with you last week, remember the Lord your God, for it is he that gives us the power to experience wealth, to get wealth. It is the Lord, it is the Spirit. So when we have the resistance, what we want to do is be able to turn to Spirit first and recognize there's a fuller picture here. I may not get it, but what happens is most people are designed to go to their default first, and their default often happens to be, this is rough, life isn't fair, they're out to get me, default is protect what I got, defend and all that. What I want us to do is to live our life from design, not default. Not from accident, but from purpose, from plan, from the ideal, to recognize, this is what I'm going to cast out upon the waters. Remember when we were talking about cause and effect, that which you cast out upon the waters, the bread that you cast out upon the tide comes back on the rising tide. It comes back, lifted ever higher with greater good. And with that said, what I've come to recognize, it doesn't always come like right back. It's like sometimes takes a little time for it to circulate around, to reciprocate back into life. Let's say I were to pray for patience. It doesn't mean that tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and go, ta-da, I'm now a patient guy. Yeah. It tends to look like 3 or 4 months down the line, I find myself in a line or in traffic running late for an appointment, and I'm experiencing the very contrast, that resistance that is allowing me, do I really believe Spirit here? Do I believe that patience is the truth of my being, and I am not at the default or the reaction of what life is stirring up on my behalf? I get to make that decision here. Do I have the patience to do that? Because what I've recognized is that, life isn't always easy all the time. Well, maybe for you, Garuda, but but if I can recognize that it is always blessed, because I continue to put Spirit first, I continue to recognize that there's always that reciprocating tide, then I can begin to trust that the perfection may not be known until the end of the journey, but I can live with a sense of trust and faith because I continue to keep Spirit in my face. I continue to remember it is God that gives me the power to move through a situation, and I become the vortex in which it expresses, in which it gives, in which it comes out into the world. I'm sure I've shared with you guys, the story, Callie and I, when early days of Seaside, and I'm trying to think where I want to go with this. That in terms of giving, sometimes you give and you're expecting it to come back from a certain place. And so it was back in about 98, the spring of 98, that there was an opportunity to put myself up to be the leader of our movement. And so in 98, in the spring, I was voted as president of this movement. And it was a great honor. It was exciting. It was dynamic. And I didn't get a nickel for it for 4 years. And it was like a full-time job. as well as Seaside, a full-time gig. You know, I live and breathe Seaside, and now we put in a whole movement that I had to run around the planet, which was a lot of fun. I loved it. I loved showing up, inspiring, healing, helping, and doing all things. I was doing it because I loved it, not because I was being paid for it. And Callie's sacrifice to the whole thing was, I never get a husband anymore. You know, and it was like, what are we getting out of this? And that is the mind that's looking, I want to get back from here because this is where I'm giving it. But what was interesting for us at this time, for 4 years that we did, is 98 in the spring, I was elected to be the community spiritual leader. And by the fall, Seaside had entered into a contract to purchase this building out of a bankruptcy court. And it's like, did one have something to do with another? Another interesting thing, as I served for 4 years, we continued to build out this place, and 4 years in the fall, we moved in 2001. It's kind of interesting, the same time frame that was going on there. Also, what was interesting is that Callie and I, we had this little beach shack that somehow we got blessed to get in Del Mar, which all of a sudden we discovered was worth something, and we were able to end up with a dream home that we also moved in 2001 in the same month. And probably the most dynamic thing that transpired in that time is Callie and I had been trying to have a child for many years, which is a lot of fun, but it didn't quite work out the way we were hoping. And within that time, we were presented with the opportunity to be able to adopt our son. And we were there, and I was able to cut the umbilical cord the day he was born. And it's like those three amazing things didn't directly come back because this is where I was giving, but I was giving from joy without expectation. I was loving what I was doing. Callie was in the whole thing. And what is happening, Seaside was blessed. Our life was blessed. We had a child in our world. And I share that because we're dealing with that which is omnipresent, that is everywhere. And so you're giving in one spot that represents spirit to you. It feels good to be in that place of flow. The high tide that is flowing through you on out is making a difference where you are. And what is happening is your world is being blessed in other areas. You know, and you get to just say, yes, this is my moment. You know, like today's an interesting day. If you're a numerologist, you realize that not only is today like 11th month, 11th day, but those who count up numbers in numerology, it's like 2018 adds up to 11. So people are thinking it's 11, 11, and 11, which somehow means like the portals have opened up, the good is coming forward, the blessings and the grace, the master numbers, and all these kind of things that may go with it. I really know nothing about that. But what I do recognize is that 11 is really a fun number. You know, something in me feels good. And so I have been tithing all my life, you know, and as I've shared, tithing is a representation of a 1. You know, it's a 10. It's easier to keep track of, as I shared with you last week, than 7.3. But what's important is that it is a regular systematic percentage that you're returning back to spirit. It's the first fruit. It's the first substance. Spirit is that which gives. You do that. And 10%, like according to Eric Butterworth, should be your training wheels. I mean, it's a nice number that you can regularly, systematically hit, but at some point you want to just move beyond that and be considered a giver in life. Spirit flows through you. Generosity flows through you. I don't need to keep track by numbers that I'm a generous kind of person. You can just look at your checkbook and say, wow, I'm a generous kind of person. But so anyway, where I'm going with that is 11 just seems to be number. So I'm committing this day to move from my 10% giving to 11% giving because it is a great number that feels good and the heavens have opened up and I'm blessed in this moment. So do what you want with numbers, but have fun with them. Don't make it such a big onus that is heavy upon you. Open up and allow yourself to stretch. Allow yourself to grow. Allow yourself to expand because Spirit wants to pour through you. You probably know the story of Elijah, who had a person who assisted this prophet and ended up dying within his tenure of serving the Lord. And the widow came to Elijah and said, you know what? Our family owes whoever the lenders are, and they're going to take my 2 sons unless I can pay them, and I have no money. And Elijah said, what I want you to do is go into your house and close all the windows, all the blinds, you know. In other words, I want you to go into your consciousness and just shut out all the naysayers, the default, the resistance, everybody that just says you're crazy for what you're doing. And I want you, and have your sons go borrow as many jars and jugs and crusts or whatever that you can, and start pouring that little drop of oil, because you told me all you have is a little oil in your house. That's all you got. I want you to just start pouring that little bit of oil into every jug. And she fills up one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and to all the jugs in the neighborhood. And she says to her son, go get another one. He said, there aren't any more. And she says, well, there's no more jugs. And the oil stops. Boom. You see, it pours until you say, that's it. There's no more space for God. I've maxed out. But the key here is it pours through you. It moves through you. Remember last week I gave you the assignment to sit and contemplate the wonderful spiritual perspective of I and the Spirit are one. Yeah? I and God are one. And all that the Spirit has is mine. Remember that one? Good. So I did it, and I just sat there day after day. The Father and I are one, the Spirit and I are one, God and I are one. All that Spirit has is mine. And what began to come from me was like this heat, was this radiance. And what I began to recognize as we talk about the Christ light, notice that light, the Christ light. I am the light. That level of consciousness is a light. It is an emanation. And the thing about light is it pours out. The light doesn't take in. The light emanates. The light gives, and it comes from within. As that Spirit moves from within us, there is a lightness, there is a light that's not taking back. It is just allowing itself to be and to share. And as you continue to pour forth the oil, to be in that place of givingness, of sharing that light, it continues to pour forth into your world. And you come to recognize that God's my sufficiency. God's grace is my sufficiency, is what it says. God's grace, that touching, that blessing, that breath, that feeling, that grace is that which restores my soul. It brings, and only if it pours through you, it's got to move from this concept of this is how it works to your activity. You become that activity of Spirit. And the Spirit reciprocates back. In the first chapter, or the first book in the Bible, Genesis chapter 31, verse 41, the guy's working for the Lord. And it says, and God increased my wages 10 times. That's kind of the 10% thing. It seems to be an easy calculable number. It didn't have to figure out, those percentage of taxes. It's increased at 10%. The point here is that Spirit, when you're doing Spirit, when you're remembering Spirit, what you find is Spirit continues to increase your world, support your world, but you've got to share it. You've got to allow it to pour through you. It's told in Malachi that bring your tithes into my storehouse so there's food in there, says the Lord. And I challenge you, he says. Try me. Test me is what it says. Test me, says the Lord. And I will open up the windows and pour forth blessings until you say, whoa, that's enough. Can you imagine having blessings pour forth into your world because the windows have been opened from the infinite, the sea that is stored with these infinite amount of treasures, and I have paddled out, I have changed, I have got a space for something new to show up, and it is pouring forth, and I'm going to say, no more, God, that's enough. I wouldn't do that. But look at Elijah, who said, oh, that's it, I run out. Somewhere the default kicks in. All of a sudden the resistance kicks in. The old tapes begin to do it. And what being in the flow does is it allows us to remember that truth and that blessing and that gift that comes from being in that light. Maya Angelou said that in addition to other benefits, giving liberates the soul. For me, liberating the soul means free. I'm free of worry, concern, I'm not afraid of they're going to get me, the bill payers, the tax collectors, the doctors, whatever. I'm free. I've got this freedom of my soul. My soul has been liberated, which is why to be able to be in the flow will assure that you receive. Always has, always will. Being in that flow turns on the spigot, so it pours forth blessings into you. So, whoa, it's enough. There's another one that comes from third proverb, verse 10, where it says, honor the Lord with your substance and your first fruit, so your barns may be overflowing and your wine press bursting with new wine. I like that. Bursting with new wine. Isn't that a great sound and visual? Bursting with the new wine, with the new Spirit, with the new life. But I've got to realize that I've got to be in the flow. And what being in the flow or giving means is I'm giving up my addiction to money. You know, that addiction money means I got to save it. That's the default. I got to protect it because there's only so much. Others are trying to get that. What I've got to do is give up that addiction and recognize that, you know what? It is an energy flow. It is an exchange. It is a movement of a life force. It is a power. It is something that is able to move, but it has to move or it has you. That power has you trapped. You know, Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, considered one of the robber barons, ruthless business person in his era. But at a certain point in his life, when he was the richest man in the world, you know, and he laid down, you know, the steel magnate, you know, he laid down the railroad tracks. I mean, that was his steel. He built, you know, the first skyscrapers on his steel. I mean, he was doing good for America, but it got to the point where there was so much money that he had that he came to recognize, and, you know, there's nothing else I can do with it other than begin to make a difference with it. Interesting shift. There's nothing else I can really get for myself. I mean, I got it all. And so what he really did is he initiated the new consciousness of philanthropy. He was really the first who said, you know, I spent the first half of my life accumulating, and he spent the second half for the rest of his life giving it away, so supposedly he left with nothing left in his bank accounts. You know, and his thing, you know, as many of us know, was libraries. He doubled the libraries within our country. The education he began to support. All of a sudden, you know, he wrote the book called The Gospel of Wealth, or essay anyway, that influenced his buddy John Rockefeller. Said, man, if Carnegie's going to do it, I'm going to do it too. And he started pouring, you know, bucket loads into different foundations to support. And all of a sudden, there was a new kind of giving that began to emerge in our world. And you can sit there and say, aren't these you know, individuals just, they got all the money. But all of a sudden, something shifted, and it's happening today, you know, where Carnegie was about education and, you know, Bill and Melinda are about eradicating epidemics upon the planet. You got Bono, rock star, not quite at that same level as those guys, but his mission is to eradicate third world debt from the predatory loans, you know, when they were given these bad kind of loans. You know, what is it that you can do? Ted Turner once again reinitiated that kind of thinking. I can still remember when he gave the $1 billion or pledged for $1 billion to the UN. And with that, Gates and Buffett got together and started what they called, what is it? The wealth pledge? I'm forgetting it. The pledge of, anyway, what it is that they started to say to the billionaire friends that, will you make a pledge that you will give away half of your wealth in your lifetime? And to this date, they have 120 individuals that have signed that pledge to be able to, that count me in for giving it away. See, it is what you can do with it. These individuals has created a new state of awareness. It's not what you have, it is what you give. It is what is important to you. You want to know what's important to you? Take a look at your checkbook or your credit card statements. You'll see where you're spending your money. You know, that's what is important to you. Oh, that's not, my bills. Well, are the bills more important, you know, than God? You know, what is most important? Take a look. You'll come to discover that there is something there. But you don't have to be one of the billionaires. There was this kid. I've shared this story. I'm sure I love it. It was a while back. It was time when ice cream was not the same expensive. It was pre-Haagen-Dazs, when you could get ice cream for not so much. And this little kid, 10-year-old, goes into I don't know, Five and Dime, where they have counters, and he sits down at the counter, and he asks the waitress, how much is a sundae? And she says, 50 cents. Reaches into his pocket, pulls out all of his change, nickels, dimes, pennies, counts it up, and says, how much is just a plain ice cream? And she says, 35 cents. And he says, okay, I'll take that. You know, she's getting a little perturbed at this moment. This kid's kind of, you know, taking up the time, not ordering much, counter space and all that. As she comes, you know, she gives him the ice cream, the bowl of ice cream, writes out the ticket, puts it on the counter, and goes away. And the kid finishes his ice cream, and he gets up, and he takes his ticket, and he goes over to the cashier. He pays him the 35 cents. And he walks out of the store, and the waitress comes to clean the counter. She's wiping it. She noticed that kid gave her 2 nickels and 5 pennies, his other 15 cents that he could have had a sundae. But what was more important to this little guy was to leave her a tip just with a thank you. You know? See, that's how it feels good to be in that giving kind of place. It is an energetic, it is the activity of spirit, it is an extension of consciousness. It's not about words. Hey, I'm generous, but are you? And it goes beyond just financial. It goes to time and talents and all those pieces. But Emerson, a great American essayist, wrote in his essay on compensations that one of the most beautiful compensations is that you cannot sincerely attempt to help another without helping yourself. See, that's the tithe, that's the bread that's cast out, that is cause and effect, that is what is coming back into your world. It is through your actions. Are you willing to give your last 15 cents? That was as much as the $1 billion to Ted Turner, if not more, because it left that little kid with nothing other than a heart and a knowingness. This week we had the shootings up in the Thousand Oaks area. I spoke about that last week, so I won't talk about that really, other than it brought up for me, like one of the first ones that caught our nation, and we were all very responsive. Remember Sandy Hook? It was December, so it was about this time in 2012. And as I thought about that, I remembered a story that came from that time, that school where shooter, besides having his own life taken, there were 26 that were killed, 20 of which were children between the ages of 5 and 10, just horrendous. And the story I was thinking about was JT's younger brother, who was 6 years old, was in the classroom when the shooting started. And at one point, the shooter's gun stuck or jammed. And this little 6-year-old told all his little buddies, go, 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 run. And he saved many lives of little kids. Just naturally, this is what came forth through him. Unfortunately, he didn't survive because as soon as the gun started working, the shooter took him. And I left with the sense what it'd be like to lose my brother like that, or a parent to lose your child. But what's interesting, and why I'm sharing this story, is JT was given some help, and in the following year, there was a Skype call that came from some of the orphans in Rwanda. If you remember the Rwandan genocide, where there were nearly 1 million Tutsis killed by their neighbors, the Hutus, by machete in a 100-day period. And these kids were sharing, and this one little 11-year-old, this one girl, spoke up to JT on the Skype call from across the planet and shared her story of what it was like to be made to watch her parents be hacked to death, and then to have her neck slashed and thrown into a collective grave, and then have the dirt buried over them. And that she had a will to live, or something, that the grave was shallow enough that she was able to dig herself out of that. And she went off into the hills and hid out in the dark forest for the next month while she sat in those mountains watching her town burn house by house, and the screams of the people she loved being killed. And she lived on grass in the mountains for a month. And what she shared with JT is that this will be hard to believe, but you don't have to remain angry and upset. That shooter doesn't have the power to take away your happiness. And you may not get that. It can turn around right now in this moment, but I want you to know the 3 things that have worked for me. And he looks at this Chantal's face that is just radiant, and she's giving her wisdom and to this young 13-year-old JT. She said the 3 things are: be grateful, you've got to forgive, and express compassion. Be grateful for anything, but I got to tell you, you're in a part of the world that 6 billion other people would give an organ to be living in. You got a lot to be grateful for. Forgiveness, you have to forgive the shooter and the family if you want to be free. And compassion, you got to find ways to give. For me, what I have done is I've opened up an orphanage, and I'm taking care of some of the orphans from the genocide, and that is how I'm serving. And with that, she completed the call, and little JT is excited, saying, I don't have to live with this. And he figured, what can I do to give? I'm only 13. I don't have any money, but Chantal, what a difference. She was an angel. She was sent from God. She made a difference. So I want to figure out how to raise money to send her to college. And so he spent the next several months raising enough money to send Chantal to college for the first year. And when he told Chantal said, oh, that is so exciting. But you know what? Sometimes in third world countries, we are not given the right opportunity to be able able to go and it doesn't work because I'm trying to take care of these kids and I've got a shop that seems to be working. And can I give it to my best friend who was part of this experience? And he said, sure. And all of a sudden, so Chantal became a giver to the best friend. The best friend became a recipient. JT became just filled with joy for what he did. That he was so excited that he became part of a group that has gone on to assist 75,000 Rwanda orphans. He's part of a group because there was something inside of him that realized that giving is what makes the difference, to feel the joy and the love within the heart. That healing is a real possibility, that I do not need to be stuck behind the resistance or the boulders or the rocks that are in my way, that I may be fighting upstream, but maybe it is that very resistance that gives me the power to stand up here as Daniel did with PTSD and said, you know what, I am able to function in this world now and I am greater and better because of what it is I have gone through. You listen to James say, I'm flying. I'm flying against the resistance. There is something inside of us that is greater. And when we're caught up in the journey, sometimes we forget the perfection of Spirit overseeing the whole thing. And so what I know about Seaside is that we continue to be a home that makes a difference in lives. You see the children here. I can't even count how many hundreds, if not thousands of children over the last 30 years have come through our community that are now out in the world bringing the positive philosophy. When people are living in fear, they're saying, you know what, there's a higher way to think about this. You can give in to the resistance, but I want you to know, Ernest Holmes says, I got to affirm that there are no mistakes today, yesterday, or forward, and that I got to know something here is greater than this. It is a place where healing is going on. We are hearing these stories here today. We hear them all the time. It is a place where we can come in the times of hurt and pain and times of joy. Our school of ministry, we have cast more than 100 ministers out into this movement of religious science that is going to carry this light to the world. We are making a difference with our live streaming that is touching more people than we're ever going to be known. That is the kind of foundation that has allowed our individual expression to become a mighty rope that can pull up the anchor and allow us to paddle out into the greater adventure, creating greater space for greater good. But only together in community can we do this. Oh, we can do things privately. Meditation's great alone, but you can't celebrate in community by yourself. And what you are part of is 30-year legacy of individuals who said, you know what, Seaside is God expressing, and I'm willing to support that for me today and for those that are yet to come. And so this is the one time of the year where we say, you know what, we're thinking about what we're going to be doing next year in 2019. And we can just say, God will provide and go blindly into the future. But like any good family, towards the end of the year, you roll up your sleeves and say, okay, we're going to put together a budget for the upcoming year. So, we can grow with it. We can expand on it. But you know what? We got a pretty clear idea what we're going to do. That's what we do here at Seaside. You have a fabulous board of trustees that take their fiduciary responsibility very seriously. And this is the one time of the year we ask the family, this is our home. Say, hey, what's your intention for next year? We recognize that, if something happens and you can't meet that, let us know. That's okay. We understand that something may happen and you may hit the lottery, and then we can build our sanctuary on the hill. There are all sorts of options. All that we're asking is right now, in this moment in time, if you call Seaside home, if you love how Spirit's expressing the things that are going on, and you're planning to be part of this community next year, how do you intend to support us? Give us a heads up. We're going to take all those and put it together and plan in an intelligent budget, if you would, and put that forward. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pray in a moment. And I'm going to ask you to take those intention cards that you have in your program or that you signed at home. And if you didn't get my letter this week at home, it's because I don't have your address. So make sure you get it to me. But they're in your program today. And I don't want you to fill them out right away. Unless you have. But then you can always add it from 10% to 11%. You know how that goes. I want you to stretch. I'm stretching. Callie's stretching. I invite all of us to stretch because as individually we rise, the whole tide, the high tide lifts all of Seaside. And so I'm going to do some prayer and try to just help activate your heart so you listen to it. Jamie's going to sing a song, and when Jamie's done singing, then will be your time to fill out this pledge card and let us know what you're thinking about supporting for next year. So relax. And just feel that presence right here in this moment. Feel that wonderful flow of the divine, knowing that it truly is a blessed moment where the fullness of God is seeking expression like that never-ending jug of oil that just kept pouring and pouring. Because I have chosen to close myself off to the limited thinking of my mind and the fears and say, I'm going in partnership with God. That is Spirit that gives me the power to experience wealth, to get wealth, so I can share that. I've come into this world to be that light, to allow it to flow from the inside out, to make a difference. And I'm going to remember Spirit first in all things. So when I hit the resistance or the boulders, the challenge, the first things I don't think about, oh, there's no path here. But wow, this is the path that God has chosen for me, and somehow it fits into the perfect picture of this journey that I don't yet know until I get to the end, but I'm trusting with God. All things are possible, and as the good begins to show up, it is the first fruits that I return to the storehouse. It is the honoring of that Spirit in the one place that I find it manifesting in all places. And so as I choose to feel the richness and the joy and the freedom and the security and the peace from knowing that I live and move and have my being in this sea of infinite treasure and infinite good, and that I am able to see from the depths of my being the richness that is seeking to catch that current up, that wellspring from the inside out and out, to share with the world, and know that I cannot outgive God as I step into this vortex of being that wonderful outflow of Spirit. That source from me surges in 10 times greater than I could ever imagine. And my gift this day that I commit is a relationship of collaboration with God. I'm putting God first, and it is making God my partner, if you would, that allows me to step forth with a greater faith and belief in that which is mine to do in this world. And I find that I am supported, that each and every one of us is supported in the expression of that greater good. So I know that God's grace is my sufficiency, that God's grace is the truth of who I am. All that I could ever need is the grace that is upon me in this moment. It is grace that has brought this to me this moment, to be able to say, I believe at a new level. I'm willing to stretch beyond where I was. My gift is making a difference in this spiritual community known as Seaside, as well as my life. I just listen and feel that breath of grace that moves through me in this very moment of the divine realization, in this field of greater understanding of Spirit's motion. It's my life.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved and set me free. I once was lost, but now I found. I was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace. Twas grace that taught my heart beat, and grace my fear relieved. Oh, how precious is, oh, that grace appeared. I first believed. 'Twas grace through many dangers, toils, and snares. I have already come. Oh, Lord, I have already come. Yeah, yeah. 'Twas grace that brought heart, and grace will lead me home when we've been there 10,000 years. Bright, bright, shining as the sun. Oh, we would know last days to sing the Holy Spirit's praise. When, oh, we first begun. Oh, and all the children sang, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved and set me free, that saved and set me free. I was lost, but now, Lord, I was blind, but now I see. Amazing, amazing amazing Mr. Jamie Lula. Well, that's what I wanted. That was beautiful. Woo. Hey, first service didn't get that song, so just know you were blazed. Yeah, how come? My mother gave you all the singing tools, you know. I didn't get them. So, well, look at that. And not everybody wears orange, and both of you guys have it going. Nice job. Anyway, this is the opportunity that I was speaking about to just fill out our intention cards and let it know. Seaside's my home, my family. I'm planning to be here next year, and this is what you can count me in for. I know you're putting together a plan for operating Seaside. Our intention is to have $1 million budget once again. We're looking at $600,000 to come in through pledges, 250 individuals or families saying, you know, can count me in, whether it's little, that 15 cents, or whether it's the billion of a Ted Turner. What matters is you counting yourself in and systematically saying, Spirit, you come first in my life no matter what. And what I begin to recognize is Spirit showing up first and all around in those different areas in my life. So go ahead, fill out those intention cards, think about it, let your heart speak, know that God's grace is your sufficiency, and just know that your gift is good for you, but it's also raising the tide for everyone that's part of this family. So I'd like to invite our board to come forward, for they are the ones that are taking the collection of our intentions for 2019. And know that these cards get prayed over continuously through the course of the year. Know that you get a letter from me once a quarter just saying thank you. I've got you in my prayers. Know that I am on board 100% to make sure you guys hit what your dream is. And so I just say thank you and thank you and thank you and just thank you to each and every one of you. And go and we'll pray over it when you get back. Practitioners who've already filled out their intent card and said, hey, count us in. I've just got a list of those that are online. Just
saying, can we give our pledge to our spiritual home? We feel your love. I want to say yes, yes, yes. And David and Waleska and Will and Angie and Charles and Rosie and Lauren and Stacy and Leslie and Leslia and Mazando and Dr. Christina and Jennifer. You know, it just, the list goes on that consider Seaside their home. And those of you who are online and those of you who are here, remember to share our live casting. We're having more and more individuals. It's starting to expand exponentially with the reach that is going on. You guys want to stand up here with me? Ray, you want to come stand up here with me and just, we hold this wonderful prayerful consciousness of support. And Edwin, you can go ahead and put those in there. And I invite all of our religious science practitioners to just stand to help create this field of love. How'd you like those pens we gave you? Paper, natural environmental stuff. This is the guy right here, John, who's gotten all our trinkets this year, the surfboard with the can opener. So as Catherine says, let out a new spirit. We've had chapsticks and sunglasses and anchors. And next week, we have our leis that you're going to receive because we're having a luau after the second service here. So plan to stick around. Carolyn's bringing in her whole troupe to do a dance. Susan Sullivan has set up the amazing party that is going on. She's got a surf band to get the party rolling. We have got wonderful food. It's a great day to bring people. I'm not going to be asking for pledges, so it's a good day. And anybody who's here for the first time, know that this isn't always what we do. But one of the things we always do that I'm about to do is prayer. And I stand before this outpouring of love, these pledges, and know that it is a divine covenant between that giver and God. For right here is a statement that is being made with God that says, God, count me in. This is my flow of support. And I know that you will increase it 10 times, just as it's done for the ancestors before us. I recognize the importance of being in that flow, and I have stretched this day. I have taken myself to the edge, and I am honoring that statement that God says, test me, bring this to the storehouse, and I will open up the windows and pour forth blessings till you say there is enough. And so what I know for each and every member of our spiritual community that is part of our spiritual family, that truly the blessings of God pour forth into our individual lives as we begin to experiencing the raising of the tide within our life. For as the individuals of this community's lives continue to prosper and be blessed, I know that that contribution to the collective of this community allows all to be touched by the grace of the good that goes on at our individual levels, and know that collectively this rope, this power, this collective family is able to lift the weights of the burden that held us anchored to the old way of being. An expression that 2019 is a year in which we are thriving. It is going to be a year of healing. It is a year of transformation. It is a year where more children are blessed with the knowledge of the truth of the light of their being. It is a time in which there is more offerings that are going on because we are delivering the spiritual goods for which we have been charged. For Seaside continues to be a growing, thriving spiritual community that inspires us to live our divinity and take it to the streets and take it to the world, to take it off our campus and make a difference in the life and the world in which we live. So these pledges here today are a declaration of supporting God's work, and what we cannot help but to experience is being the receiver. For those that give, begin to be the receivers, for that flow just is inevitable. The spigot has been turned on, the floodgates have been opened, and what we recognize that we live in this sea of infinite treasures. The shift has taken place in mind and consciousness through our action. We are the activity that God is having in our life and have chosen to play at a percentage level of just trust with Spirit. So putting Spirit first systematically, always, all the time, we take those first fruits and say, God, and we are in partnership together. I believe, and my actions speak louder than my thoughts. And so I step forth knowing that the most beautiful of the compensations is our desire to help cannot help but to bless us back. And so with joy for being in a place to be able to participate in the givingness of God, I I just let go with a deep trust, knowing that everyone of this spiritual family continues to experience the joy, the prosperity, the health, and knowing that if there's anyone in our life that we have concern for, that in our heart space, this love space, there is just a lifting into that light where they are imbued with the wonderful presence of God and healing happens. We know it's true for every prayer request in our prayer request chest, every one that has been brought forth. We know the perfect healing is going on in all those that have reached out. And so I say thank you for this awareness, for having a family of knowers of the spiritual truth, able to look at those rocks and boulders and know that is the path to the greater expression. I let go and trust and believe, and so it is. Amen.
There was a time in my life I thought I had to do it all for myself. I didn't know the grace of God was sufficient. I didn't know the love of God was at hand. But now I can say, if you are discouraged, struggling just to make it through another day, you've got to let it go. And this is what you've got to say. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Say I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Let's hear you, Seaside. Yes, I'm only here for God.
Yeah. You guys. And before our affirmation, just want to remind you, Monday night right here, the sisters have got sacred space going on. Reverend Lori Mack's going to join Callie in creating that space where the veil gets thin and they experience the divine downloads for you. So come be part of that. See, Elizabeth Ruth has a class on the alchemy of clutter, or getting rid of clutter. Anyway, the wonderful feng shui gifts. And so go talk to Elizabeth afterwards, since I'm butchering it right now. And guys, you know, we have a service project next Saturday out at the San Diego River. Kathy Bouquet has put together this wonderful project, and our children have made what, seed pods? Seed balls. So they're going to give them to everybody going out there so they can share and plant the indigenous seeds in the San Diego River. So thank you for that gift that you have done. So see you next Sunday. See you at the luau. And together our affirmation is, I am one of life's generous givers. Together, I am one of life's generous givers. Touch your heart and let it be so. I am one of life's generous givers. One more time. I am one of life's generous givers. And our song of grace.
I'm living in love. I'm living in peace. I'm living my life for what I believe, through joys and through fears. In this world I walk, God's grace shines on me, and it shines on us all. We are living in grace.